Today is 1 November, Sunday, the day of the reunion banquet at 9:10 a.m. We're interviewing John Krause. On camera is Lisa Sueki. Audio catalog is Laura Shigemitsu. We're interviewing John Krause, Russel Nakaishi interviewing, and Mr. Krause's son Daniel is observing. Mr. Krause, could I call you John for the interview?
Yes.
Let's start the interview by having you give us your full name, date of birth, and place of birth.
My full name is John Daniel Krause. Date of birth is 25 August 1924.
Where were you born?
I was born in Escanaba, Michigan.
Did you have a nickname while you were in the service or growing up?
Did I have what?
A nickname.
A nickname? Yes, Jack.
Was that in the service as well as the...
In service as well as at home, right.
Can you tell us about your family, your father, first of all?
My father's first name is Ernest. Last name was Krause, of course. He was born in Chase, Wisconsin, and moved up to Michigan as a sawmill employee. And he worked there in the sawmills, and then he started his own business in Bark River, Michigan. My mother's name was Edna Gassman. She was born and raised in the Bark River area. And she was actually from a large farm, and she and my father married, and everybody stayed in Bark River.
You mentioned in your questionnaire about your great-grandfather. Tell us, do you remember anything about your grandfather and great-grandfather?
The only time that I remember my great-grandfather was sitting on his porch in Chase, Wisconsin, and I was quite young at the time, and I don't remember much about him, but they're working on a history of the family now, and he immigrated from Germany to the Chase, Wisconsin area and settled there and had a farm where my father was born and raised, and built a huge stone barn there, which is now going to be on a historical barn. It was built in 1903 and is still standing, and they're restoring it.
Can you tell us what your father was like? What was he like, in your opinion?
What was he?
Your
what?
father. What was he like? Can you describe him to us?
Oh, he was a big man, quite tall. Was about 6'1", I think. Weighed around 225 pounds. Very, very muscular. Worked hard and started his own business with my mother as helping him, and raised a family in Bark River, and the business is still in operation. It started in 1920, and now our son Daniel owns it and is operating it.
What was your mother like?
My mother was a very gentle person. She was quite chubby, rather short, but she was very generous and community-minded, and she loved people and loved to visit. She was, in my mind, a very good asset to the community.
Do you recall anything about the community at the time you were growing up? What was that like?
It's a very small village. We have somewhere between 400 and 500 residents now. I don't think we had quite that many when I was growing up. Went to a small four-room school through the 10th grade, and the village was pretty much self-contained. Everybody stayed in town. You didn't travel much, and everybody got along good too.
what was family life like? Tell us about that and your brothers and sisters.
I had, excuse me, I had two sisters and one brother. My younger sister is deceased now, and my younger brother is deceased now. My older sister is still alive. She's in a healthcare facility, and she's 88 years old now, so she's elderly. And everybody got along good. We had a lot of fun together, played together, and played games together, and more or less a pretty well-knit family, I thought.
What kind of games did you all play?
What kind of games? Well, Monopoly was one. We played 500 cards, and we played Crazy Eight sometimes, and hide and seek, and ely over, throw the ball over the house, and things like that, outdoor games.
Did you and your brothers and sisters have chores around the home?
We had chores, yes. I helped at the store a lot, and so did my sister. And within the house, we helped with dishes and setting the table and things like that.
What kind of food or meals did you have as a child?
I didn't understand that.
The food. What type of food did you eat when you were growing up?
We ate, everything was home cooked, of course, and we ate staples. My father was a great man for meat and potatoes, and he really enjoyed that, and we had that lots. We ate a lot of corned beef mixed with potatoes, a kind of a German dish of some kind, and then we had. My mother was Swedish, so we had some ethnic Swedish foods also that she prepared.
Having your great-grandfather emigrate from Germany, did you learn German as a language?
No, not at all. No. The only foreign language that was used in our household at all was when my mother had a Swedish friend come over. They would sometimes talk Swedish just to keep the language going, but otherwise, in our household, it was English.
During you weren't born at the time, but did your parents and your great-grandfather talk about your community and your family, the impact from World War I?
The impact of World War I was not too much for us because my father was to be inducted the day the war ended. And someone came running across the field at the farm in Chase, Wisconsin, to tell him that he didn't have to go to town to be checked in. So he didn't get in the war, and otherwise there was none of the family that was in it, really, no.
Being a German family, were there any repercussions because of World War I?
Was there any what?
Repercussions or any problems?
Some, yes, a little bit, but not a lot, no.
What things did your family run across, those items or those instances?
Well, there was not so much World War I, but World War II, there was some antagonism with the Germans, and we had a few people in the area that were pro-Nazi and thought that was a great thing, and they were kind of ostracized for a while. But nothing really critical, no.
Tell us about your elementary school or your grade school education.
Okay. I went to grade school in Bark River, Michigan. It was a 4-room school with 10 grades in it. We had a minimum of 2 grades in every room, and some rooms had 3. and I went there through the 10th grade. And then I went to Escanaba, Michigan, to a large high school for my final 2 years, 11th and 12th. I graduated from Escanaba High School.
Okay, what year did you graduate?
1942.
Can you recall which in the early primary school your favorite subject?
My favorite subject was math. I loved math. I loved geometry and trigonometry, and I also loved physics.
Were you also involved in any organized sports or other athletic activities?
Only basketball. And I was not very good. I did get a letter, but I wasn't really good at it.
In your educational background or your grade school background, was there anyone or any teacher, any influential person that may have had an impact on you?
Yes. I had a teacher called by the name of Morris Goodrow, and he was a very, very good tutor and a mentor to me. He really helped me along. He spruced me up good in mathematics and gave me a good start for when I got into high school.
Growing up in Wisconsin, were there any community values or family values that come to mind now that you gained as you grew up?
Well, really the family that was in Wisconsin was not really close to us because when my grandfather died, the eldest son in a German family got everything. He inherited whatever the grandfather had. And there was a big row in the family, and that's how my father moved to Michigan rather than stay in Wisconsin. There was too much infighting, so he decided to leave and came to Michigan. And that's how the family started up there.
Growing up in Michigan, how different was that from Wisconsin?
How did it differ?
Yes.
Well, I actually never grew up in Wisconsin. I was only visiting down there, that's all. And I can't say how it was different except what my father told me, that there was so much infighting in the family that he wanted to leave.
Are there any other occasions or events in your life that were very influential to you besides what we talked about growing up?
I think the friends that I had in Barker, Michigan were so close and we were so tight-knit that they helped me. And the other parents were almost like godparents to me, or vice parents, or whatever you want to call them. And I went over to their house, I was just like one of their children. And same thing over at our house.
It's a very tight-knit.
Very, very tight-knit group, right.
What were you doing when the attack on Pearl Harbor occurred? We came home from church and heard it on the radio. That was the first I knew about it, and we didn't have TV or anything, so that was what we did. We listened to it on the radio. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was very upset by the way the attack took place more than anything else. I mean, with no declaration of anything that was going to happen. I guess it was a sneak attack or something, and I was quite displeased with it.
Do you recall any reaction from your parents?
Nothing more than what I just said. They didn't fly up in the air or anything like that. No. They were unhappy, but no, they didn't get real angry. No.
During that time, were you aware that Germans and Japanese and Italians were being interned? Did you hear about that?
Not that day, no, but I did later, and yes, I was not happy with that, no, because the people that were being interred were Japanese and American citizens, and I thought that they deserved better treatment than they received at that time.
Were any of your family interned as a result of the war?
No.
How did you enter the military?
How did I enter? Uncle Sam said, "I want you." I was drafted March of 1943.
What was your reaction when you got the draft notice?
I expected it to come. I had intended to go to college, and then I knew that my number was getting pretty close, so I didn't go to college. I just waited it out and graduated in June '42 and was drafted in March of 1943.
Did your father or mother have anything to say about your getting drafted?
Nothing critical. Well, I was just like everybody else. I was going to go to war, and one of those things. I wasn't the only one that was going to go. There was lots of people that were drafted.
Do you recall your serial number?
My serial number, yes, 36457-130, enlisted, and then I got a different one when I was commissioned.
I always amazed how all these years the serial number is the one thing that every veteran remembers.
All right.
For you, why is that? Why were you able to recall it so easily?
Partly because I'm good with numbers. Numbers stick in my head pretty well. Names are not real good, but numbers I can remember.
What was your induction day like?
What was the day like?
The day that you got inducted. What was it like, and what did you go through?
Well, what did I go to? We entered a building, and one of the first things you had to do was take all your clothes off and get examined. You look at your teeth and you check your eyes and your feet and see if they were flat or not. And then you got a new issue of clothing, which most of it didn't fit, of course. You had to exchange it if you got a chance to do so. And then they put us in a barracks, and we took some tests and for IQ, so forth and so on, see if we were smart enough to be a soldier. And then they put us on a train, and I went to South Carolina.
What was basic training like for you?
Basic training was not real difficult. I was born in a farm community and helped my father in the yard, so I was fairly strong and very healthy at the time. And I got through my training with no problem.
What was the best part of your training?
Best part of my training? Rifle practice. Out on the rifle range. I liked that.
What was your ranking?
My rank at that time?
I'm sorry. Yeah. What was your rank, and what rank did you get for rifle?
Oh, I was rated as an expert with the M1 and a sharpshooter with the carbine.
Which of those two weapons did you prefer?
The M1 was an excellent rifle, and it was very, very accurate.
At the time you were was it North Carolina, for basic training, what was the worst thing that you went through?
Bayonet drills. I really disliked it, and I don't think most people really don't like thinking about bayonet work. It's not much fun. No.
What was what was the displeasure about bayonet training? What was so bad about it?
thinking that I would have to pierce another human with a bayonet on the end of my rifle. I didn't think I would like that. No.
What? How long were you in basic training?
Basic training, 13 weeks. And then somehow the records got mixed up, and I was supposed to go home on a furlough, and somebody else with the same name as I had went on furlough, and I went to a replacement depot to be sent overseas. So I got out of basic training and went over to Africa.
Did you have a chance to write a letter or call your parents?
I was able to call my parents at home, but I could not go home. They wouldn't. I didn't have enough leave.
What was the trip over to overseas like? What was that like?
It was pretty miserable because we were in an English ship. The food was not very good, and about 3/4 of the people were sick, and we were way down in the bottom of the ship with bunks 5 high, and I don't know how many people were in that one room, but there was 2,000 men on the ship as replacements going over there, and the food was not good. Let's put it that way. You know. And I didn't eat much for 8 days.
Did you get seasick going over?
Not too seasick, no, but I was ill. Yes. Mm-hmm.
When you were going overseas, what rank did you have by that time?
At time I was a private, and when I got overseas, I became a PFC right off the bat because I was going into combat.
Reaching Europe, where did you first land?
Landed in Casablanca, Africa, and then I transferred from there to Oran, Africa. And at that time, we were out in the little hills behind the camp, training, and the orderly came out from the company headquarters and said, hollering for John Krause. So I didn't know what I had done wrong, why they wanted me, and they called me in, gave me a brand new uniform and new shoes, boots, and put me on a 2.5 ton truck, and we rode for a couple of days over to Tehran, Iran, so that we could wait on a bunch of big shots there that were having a meeting. And that's all I can tell you about it, is that's all I did. I was a busboy over there. And then I went back, and then in November I went over to Italy, and at that time I was assigned to the 36th Division.
Well, on your trip to Tehran, did you know who those bigwigs were?
No, I didn't. No. General Clark was there, I'm sure, and I never saw him, but I think General Eisenhower was there at one time too, and Montgomery from the British Army.
After the war was over, did you eventually find out, or did you ever find out who?
No, I never did. No, I didn't check the history of it. No. As I said, I was a farm boy, and I'm not too experienced. I didn't know what to check on even.
Traveling all the way through Africa and to the Middle East, what stuck with you? Your impression of that area?
Well, when we docked in Casablanca, the first people that I saw there were Arabs, and they used to have these blue barracks bags that we carried our clothes in. Well, that's what they were wearing. They cut 2 holes in the bottom and tied the rope around their middle, and here's some doughboy's name on the back there. That's what they were using for pens. And you had to be careful. They were pretty tough, and they would take the skin off your hide, off your body, if you gave them a chance. They I don't understand why exactly, but they thought they were entitled to steal, I guess.
What was the? I guess what was the mood like in Africa at the time when you landed there? What was the mood like?
Well, everybody was apprehensive because they didn't know what was going to happen. They were happy that the war in Africa had been completed, that the Germans had been chased out and shut down, but nobody knew where they were going at that time, or what they were going to do, or who they were going to be with. And I don't think I mentioned it, but when I went over on that ship, there was 2,000 replacements on there, and I didn't know anybody because I had just left the unit that I had been with for 13 weeks, and nobody else from that unit was with me.
You went earlier than that.
That's right.
While in Africa, did you see the surrendered Africa Corps?
No, I did not. No, I was there right after that happened. Right.
Once you moved over to join the 36th Division, tell us about how you blended into that unit. How were you assigned to them?
I was I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I guess I felt pretty much like an orphan because the 36th Division was entirely Hispanic from the Texas area, and they all spoke Spanish together, and we didn't know what they were saying or what they were doing unless they pointed out to us what they wanted us to do. And it was not pleasant for quite a while. So you got to know some of them and got along with them.
Where did you first meet up with the 36th?
South of Naples, on the beach down there. They had made the landing at Salerno and established a beachhead, and then I joined them shortly before they started trying to go up Highway 6 in Italy and through the mountain pass, and then they had to secure the mountains first, and this was difficult because the Germans were up on top and we were coming from the bottom. And the old story, mud mules and mountains, well, that's what Italy was like. You had to have mules to haul rations up to the troops and ammunition and so forth, and water, of course.
When you first got to the division, where were you first assigned to? What company?
I was assigned to Company E of the 141st Infantry Battalion.
What job did you?
I was wound up in the mortar section. To begin with, I was a lowly private, and what I did was try to go up and down the mountains hauling rations and water and ammunition up to the top because they couldn't get it up there any other way. And since I was brand new, well, that was one of my first jobs, was to go up and down the trail.
What was your first impression of Italy when you landed in Naples? What was your first impression?
Well, one of the first things we ran into was an orchard of apricots, and the apricots were ripe, and everybody loved them so much that they all got sick eating apricots. But no, it was a very at that time it was a pretty desolate country, and it was a bad time of the year. It was rained almost every day, and then when you got up in the mountains, then it was snow and cold, and your blankets would get wet, and in the morning they were frozen and so forth. So it was a tough deal, and it was just one mountain after another that we were trying to get up to the top of.
When you first got to the unit, can you describe what type of, or how often were you able to clean up and change?
We weren't able to change at all. We sometimes got enough water to clean up and wash our face and shave a little bit, but as far as our clothing, we never were able to change, and we had one extra pair of socks that we would try to get dried out in order to so we didn't get trench foot.
Can you tell us about your first major combat action, the Rapido River? Can you tell us what you did during that battle?
My first major attack in Italy was the attack at the Rapido River, and we were supposed to, our squad, each squad was assigned a barge to carry down to the river, and we had no experience, and they didn't tell us how to carry it, so we were kind of sliding it along on the ground, and we hit a mine and blew a hole in the barge. So then we had to go back and get another one. And then they told us how to carry it. We just carried it upright, upside down, really. And we got it down to the river, and we all loaded in it and got halfway across the river. And the river was so swift, and we got snagged on a tree root or something in the river, and the barge tipped over. So we all of us were very near to drowning, and I managed to get back to the American shore rather than the part that the Germans were holding. So I got back to my original company, but very, very few people did from that attack.
What was what happened after you got back? I'm sorry.
After I got back?
After you got back to the U.S. side, what happened?
Well, after we got back, there was a lot of talk about doing some more, trying to cross the river, but then they finally canceled that, and we went back up on the mountains again and chased the Germans off the mountaintops, and then we held the mountaintops against the counterattacks until sometime in February, I believe it was, and I was on the mountaintop when they bombed the Monte Cassino Abbey up there. They came over with big flights of B-17s and B-24s and bombed it a lot, which in the end result was of no value because the Germans were in the rubble and it didn't make any difference. They just were still hanging on there.
Were you, from where you were on the hill, did you see the bombing?
Yes, I could. Yes, definitely. And I was also on one of the mountaintops when Mount Vesuvius erupted. That was kind of quite an experience for us to watch that.
How far away were you from the actual?
Oh, about 30 miles, maybe, something like that. But we were up high. Mm-hmm.
Can you describe for us, while the bombings were going on and the eruption, what were you and the soldiers yourselves doing?
Well, at the time, we were pleased that they finally decided to bomb the Abbey, and as I said, the end result was not good, but we thought it was going to help us a lot in order to get the Germans out of there, but it just didn't work. No.
When did you first physically see the enemy? Did you ever have a chance to see the enemy?
I did. I went back with a reunion trip in 1984, and the Abbey was completely restored. Put it all back together just exactly like it was. So it was. I'm sure that Uncle Sam took care of that, but that's what was done.
In Italy, did you ever see the enemy, the Germans? Did you see them face to face, or at least saw them?
Quite a few times, yes. Mm-hmm.
What was your impression of them?
Well, in the beginning of the war, or not the beginning, but when I first entered the war, the Germans were very strong. They were well equipped and they had all very good soldiers. And they did not surrender easily, but some of them did, and then we got to see them face to face. And of course, I saw quite a few that weren't talking anymore too. Just like our own people, they were deceased, yeah. But they had good equipment and they were well trained. They were good soldiers.
Did you have did you have the opportunity to have question any or?
No, that was not in my. The position I was in was not involved with that. No, we escorted them to headquarters, and then headquarters took care of it.
Were you involved in the Anzio?
Not the original landing, but I did go to Anzio for the breakout. We went on that night trip up the hill and over the hill and broke through the backside of the German defenses and got on trucks and rode into Rome. On the 6th of June, we arrived in Rome, and the Germans had cleared out. They had gone away, which was nice, so that all of Rome didn't have to get bombed out too.
What was your reaction or your feeling when you rode into Rome?
We were very elated, I'll tell you. I mean, that we were riding instead of walking and slogging in the mud. And the fact that we were moving, that was a very, very slow process until we got through out of Anzio, and every move you made was just 1 foot at a time ahead of the other one, trying to chase the Germans out.
This was the same date as the Normandy landings. Did you hear about the landings in Europe?
Oh yes, D-Day. Yeah, we heard about it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you recall if you had any reaction to that?
Well, we were glad that it was successful. Everyone was concerned about whether it was going to work or not because the Germans had such good defenses there, but I guess Eisenhower and his group foxed them out some so that they were able to get a foothold. But it was real tough going. There's no doubt about that from what I hear and see in movies and so forth. And it was when we first heard about it, we thought it was wonderful, but when they got stalled so badly after they got ashore, then we were concerned again because the Germans started pouring reinforcements down there and thought maybe they were going to push them off again, but they held on.
Once you got into Rome, what did you do next? Once you got to Rome,
yes.
What did you do next?
What did I do next? Actually, we got to visit a couple of places in the city, and then we saddled up again and went up the road farther. We went up almost 200 miles north of Rome before we stopped. That was up close to the Pisa, the Tower of Pisa, and we held the line there for a while in a village called Roccastrada. And then we were relieved and we went back to Naples to prepare for the landing in southern France.
What kind of preparations did you go through?
For the landing? Oh, we had to practice using a landing craft, which we hadn't done, climbing up and down a net off of a big ship, a troop ship. And, well, mostly after that it was just standard infantry practice, that's all. Yeah.
Did they give you any time off?
Oh yes, oh yes. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I was lifeguard on the beach for a couple of days because nobody else volunteered, and I thought it was a good deal, so I was out on the beach at Naples for a couple of days.
Did you have a chance to interact with the Italian citizens there?
The people, the citizens? Yes, they were very friendly, I would say, and of course they were pretty frugal because they didn't have much. I'll tell you, everything the Germans had taken everything good out of the place, and they didn't have a whole lot of food. There were a lot of orphans, especially in the Anzio area. There were young people that had lost legs from shoe binds and so forth, and so there were quite a few orphans there, and they were hungry most of the time. They were very happy for us to come and set up our kitchen because we would feed them, and otherwise, yes, they were friendly people, and if they had something extra, they sure would give it to you. Yes.
Did you learn any Italian while you're there?
No, I didn't. Not close. No.
During this time where you're training and resting, did you have a chance to write back home?
Oh yes.
Receive letters?
Yes, I wrote home as much as I could, but everything was censored, of course, so you couldn't say too much. Couldn't say where you were or exactly what you were doing, but to inform them that you were well and so forth.
Did you receive letters from home?
Did I hear from home?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Not often, but every once in a while the letters would get through. We'd have a mail call when we had a chance. Mm-hmm.
What kind of things did they write back to you about?
About what was happening at home, and sometimes a little news about things that we didn't know about, how well the landing in was going in France, and D-Day invasion, and gas rationing. Everybody was kind of complaining a little bit. They couldn't get certain things, sugar and silk stockings and things like that, but generally tried to keep you happy more than anything else. They didn't want to add anything to the woes that we already had.
That was what the home front was trying to do, keep your morale up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
About this time, what was your rank?
I was a corporal. Yes. Mm-hmm. I got to be a PFC shortly after I landed in Europe, and then I got to be a corporal as after we left Anzio.
Being a corporal, what did that entail?
Well, I got to be a gunner on the mortar rather than just an ammo carrier, and which was a little better. But of course, then you got to carry the mortar tube, which was not much better than the ammunition. So, but you had a little bit of command. You had a couple of guys that you could boss around and tell them what to do.
What happened after the training was over? Tell us about the next operation.
The next operation, we left from Naples on landing on LCVPs and went to the Riviera of France, and we landed at close to a village called Frejus, 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 and it was a kind of a rock quarry thing, and our landing was uneventful as far as the area that I was in. Some artillery came at us, but not a whole lot, and there were no Germans right on the shore. So we got in and got set up very, very nicely the first night. And then we were at a crossroads that we were supposed to protect. And the machine gun that was close to us, big truck came by, a German tanker, and he fired at it, and there was a gasoline tanker. So we had a big fire that first night to put up with. The next morning we had started advancing, and we went up into France, made very good headway, and got up close to Lyon, France, and Montelimar was the next big fight, we blocked off the retreat of the German 19th Army and just about destroyed them there at that time. Our artillery really plowed them up.
Okay, John, sorry about that.
Don't be sorry, be happy.
Let's continue with your story about landing at the French Riviera.
Yes.
And the fire with the
Okay.
the truck.
We had that big fire there that night, and then on the next morning we began a very rapid advance up the Rhone Valley in France. And we continued north quite rapidly, and then, as I said, that city of Montelimar, this German 19th Army was bottled up, and we practically destroyed the whole thing there, but a few of them got out, and then they were on their way north, trying to get back to Germany. And we continued chasing them, and everything went very, very well until we got into the Vosges Mountains, and then the German defenses stiffened up again, and the fighting got pretty tough for a while again.
At that time, which battalion were you assigned to?
I was in the 2nd Battalion of the 141st, Easy Company.
Tell us about the opening battles in the Vosges Forest. What was that?
Well, there were very few roads, for one thing, and the roads that were there were actually more or less trails. And the weather was wet and cold and some snow. And the heavy vehicles, of course, churned up the roads so that everything was all mud after a very short time. And the foot soldiers had a rough time too, because their feet were wet all the time and cold, and we didn't have winter clothing. We had only nothing really designed for cold weather.
Describe for us the first battle in the Vosges Forest. Tell us about what the first battle was like.
The first battle in the Vosges Forest was mostly against German roadblocks. We would go through the woods on both sides and then try to get around these roadblocks and get the Germans out of there so that we could get vehicles to come up there. And at the same time, as we moved ahead, the engineer battalion from 36th Division was building road behind us so that the heavier vehicles could get through, like tanks and heavy artillery pieces. And they were doing a wonderful job. They were cutting trees down and making corduroy roads and to stiffen them up so that these vehicles could come.
When did you first encounter the Nisei soldiers of 442nd?
Actually, I did not. No, not until after the battle was over. We were on the right flank of the the 1st Battalion, and they, of course, are the ones that got surrounded, and then we were more or less trying to position ourselves so that the Germans couldn't bring any more reinforcements. If they'd got any more, they'd have wiped out the whole bunch. And the way I understand it, some of these Germans that were surrounding the 1st Battalion were the ones from the 19th Army that were almost destroyed at Montelimar, and they were determined to annihilate that battalion from the 141st.
From your vantage with the 2nd Battalion, what was the breakthrough like from your perspective?
The breakthrough, well, I have to back up a little bit because I was there and I was in the fighting, and there was of course a lot of German artillery coming in, and I was involved more or less trying to protect the flanks so that keep the German reinforcements out. And then I think it was the fourth day of that the battalion was surrounded. A tree burst got me, and I was wounded. I think it was on the 23rd of October, if I remember right. And I had to go back to the aid station, and I went to the hospital for a couple of weeks before I got back. And so I wasn't actually there when the rescue was completed.
You were involved in the overall rescue attempt.
That's right. And we made 2 trips back to Italy and to France for memorial trips for the division. And at that time, I became involved with quite a few of the Nisei. I enjoyed their company, and we had a real good time together.
During the battle itself, and after the battle, were you able to meet up with any of the Niseis while you were in the Vosges?
Not while I was in the Vosges. No, I did not. No.
What was when you returned back to your unit, what was your next task once you got back?
We were crossing into Germany and breaking through the Siegfried line to get into the plains in Germany, so that keep routing the Germans out of there. At that time, we were fighting teenagers. German teenagers were. It was Hitler's youth group that were, and then some of the others were officer candidates that were very vicious fighters. But these young boys, that was really a rotten shame to see them knocked down or destroyed. A young life like that, because Hitler wouldn't give up.
What was your experience during the Battle of the Bulge?
I was in Strasbourg, France. Our unit had been relieved from the line at the time, and then we were called back up into the Hagenau-Herlesheim area to help contain the Bulge. They weren't sure exactly how it was going to wind up, and we were called back up to right after Christmas to contain or push the Germans back away from Strasbourg, because they were trying to get back in there too.
When you heard about the Ardennes offensive, what was your reaction to that?
Well, the division that was in the line that the Germans really hit hard was the one that I left in South Carolina, the 106th Division, and they were brand new on the line. They'd only been there 1 week into combat, and that's where the offensive of the Bulge took place mostly, and they had a very, very rough time because their commanders weren't experienced, and a lot of them ran away. They weren't hardened at all enough to fight, and it was really tough for them, and they lost an awful lot of men.
Did you know anyone that still knew anyone in the 106th?
I know quite a few, but they were, what should I say? They had taken so many replacements out of the 106 that there were a lot of new ones there that I did not know. No.
When you heard about the German offensive, how did that make you feel at this late date in the war?
Well, when you hear about a major offensive like that and the progress that they make, you start to wonder a little bit how serious this is going to be and how much we're going to get involved. And we did. We got in on the south side of it and did our part and helped force the Germans to withdraw
After the Bulge battle, what did you do next?
What did I do?
Yes.
Well, we moved quite rapidly into Germany and took a whole lot of prisoners. Actually, one unit of our outfit captured Hermann Goering, and he didn't want to be captured by privates or anything, but he did. He didn't want to give up his pistol, but they took it away from him and made him give it up, and he came along. He behaved himself, but he was quite arrogant. I'll tell you, he didn't want us to take his freedom away from him.
Did you see Hermann Goering?
Yes.
Can you describe, besides what you already said, describe what he looked like at that time?
Well, he was a very large man and more or less pudgy, I would say, kind of a pudgy look. He had a pudgy face and cheeks and so forth, and I don't know. He was German, there's no doubt about that, but he thought he was better than he was, really. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a chance to speak to him?
No, I did not, no.
At that point, what did you think? What was your impression, or what was your reaction now that your unit had actually captured Hermann Goering? What were you thinking then?
Well, we were very proud that our units were able to capture him, and that it indicated to us that the end of the war was very near. When we get a big man like that, our infantry can catch and so forth. And actually, I think it was the war ended, I believe, on May the 8th, and I think it was around the 1st of May that I went to Fontainebleau, France. That's where I was commissioned, a second lieutenant at that time.
Describe to us. Okay, let's stop there, and we'll continue on with your commission.
Oh, all right.
What I want to do is ask. I want to review. We're on the second tape. I wanted to review a little bit about your experience during the capture of Hermann Goering.
My experience, I was just close to the group that captured him. I was not actually right there. No, not at the time. But I did see him after he was captured. Yes.
Well, while you were there, did you notice any or how he was treated by the Americans?
Well, he was treated nicely, I thought. But he was upset by being captured by, I believe it was a PFC that got him, and he made him give up his pistol, which he was very unhappy about. But he did, and he was treated well. Yes, no one abused him or anything like that. No.
Do you recall if any of the soldiers yelled? Or celebrated or cursed him or anything like that?
No, not that I recall. No. I thought that everybody was pretty well behaved. Yes. Mm-hmm.
The reason why we focus on that a little bit is because he was such a principal in
mm-hmm. Yes.
in the Nazi Party that started this whole
right.
thing. Mm-hmm. We left off the tape with your commission.
Yes.
How did that come about?
It came about that I was considered to be an excellent soldier and a good fighter, and my IQ was pretty good, and they said, "We know you know how to fight. We'll send you down there for a couple of weeks to learn how to be a gentleman." And I went down there, and in June they made me a second lieutenant. And my serial number then was 020563.
Why did your number change?
Because when you become an officer, I was discharged as a sergeant, and then when you become an officer, they give you a different serial number. And my number begins with 02. If it's 01, you're regular Army. But I was Army of the United States. I didn't go to West Point or anything like that. No.
Would your commission be considered a battlefield commission?
More or less, yes. Semi battlefield, yes. Mm-hmm.
As an officer, now that you became an officer, what did you have to do, and what changed with you?
Well, one of the things was that I got back to the 36th Division, and I requested that I not be put back in E Company, so that I didn't have to push around or boss around the people that I had been with for so many months. And so then I was assigned to H Company, still in the 2nd Battalion, but in H Company. And at that time, then we were occupying the city of Ulm, ULM, Germany.
While you were there, at this period of time, where were you when you heard that the war was over?
I was at Fontainebleau when I heard that the war was over. I just arrived there.
What was your reaction?
I was very, very happy, I'll tell you that. Yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, after I got out of the school where I went back to a replacement depot in Germany, and they said, well, good, we need young second lieutenants, we're going to go to Japan now. And I said, no, I don't think so. I said, a friend and I hitchhiked back down to division headquarters, 36th, and spoke to our regimental commander. And he said, no, he said, we need you here, so you go back up there and we'll take care of it for you. So we got back into the 36th instead of getting shipped somewhere else.
How did you feel? Relieved?
I was happy, yeah, very happy, yeah, and there's a lot of benefits, of course, to being an officer. You get a few more privileges and so forth. Yeah, I was happy with it.
Here, one of the questions really doesn't have a major historical significance, but when you change over from enlisted to commission, in the theater, how did you then change your uniform to become an officer?
They give you a uniform allowance, and then you go to a store and you select your clothes that fit. And I forget at that time, I believe it was a $250 allowance that you get to buy clothes, and then of course after that, then you're on your own. You have to buy your own. But your first issue, they give you your new uniforms.
So you had to dress differently from...
That's right. Well, I didn't have to dress differently exactly, but if I wanted to dress up, I could dress up a lot differently. I could wear a different blouse and different colored trousers and so forth, rather than just plain OD. Right.
Well, when you rejoined the division in Germany, were you able to go around and see Germany?
Oh yes. As a matter of fact, I was a junior officer in each company, and partially in the whole battalion. So they put me in charge of the officers' club. So I traveled around the country trying to find supplies for the officers' club and did things like that.
Did you have a chance to see where your family had come from?
No, I did not. No.
When you went around the German countryside, describe for us the things that you encountered and things you saw.
Well, the bad thing was visiting the concentration camps. That was a terrible, terrible feeling to go into those places and see what had been done and how the people had been treated and so forth. And the not so much the villages, but the cities were in a shambles. They were really, really torn up and bombed out. Even the city of Ulm that we were in, on that street where the house that we were billeted in was close to a very huge cathedral, and that's the only thing that was standing. The bombs did not hit this cathedral in Ulm.
Was that? Do you know if that was by design or by?
Well, I think it was God's will that it wasn't supposed to get hit, I guess, right? Mm-hmm.
How did the German citizens treat you as an American soldier?
When I was trying to do my shopping for the Officers Club, they were very, very nice to me. I had no problems with them. And anyone that you spoke to, if you weren't happy with what they were doing, you mentioned it to them, and they corrected it right away. They were not obstinate at all, and as a matter of fact, they were quite friendly.
Did you encounter any Germans that were bitter or upset?
Some, a few, yes, and most of the German prisoners had been dispersed somewhere else. We didn't have too many right where we were, and we had a lot of displaced persons, Poles and Ukrainians and so forth, that had been forced to come over and work in Germany, and so we had to kind of take care of them too, and find supplies for them and so forth. But no, there was not a lot of dissension or no arguments caused or anything.
When did you return back to the States?
I went to Marseille, France in December 1st, I think it was, and then I got on a ship and I arrived back in the States on the 23rd of December, 1945. And then all of the people that were supposed to process me to send me home were gone away for Christmas, so I had to stay there until after Christmas, and they came back. And then I got home on the 2nd of January.
Can you describe for us your homecoming? What was that like?
At my village, oh, it was very, very pleasant. Everybody was very happy. Yeah, my mother cried so hard that I really felt bad for her, but it was happiness tears, I guess. And my sister Maureen was in the wax, so she was in the service also, but only in the States. She didn't go overseas at all. And my mother and father were very happy to have me home.
When you were wounded, did they receive notice? Your parents, did they receive a notice when you were wounded?
Yes, they did. And my mother became quite concerned about it, but I wrote to her as soon as I could and told her that I was okay and that everything was going to be fine.
Did your older sister tell you, talk about what things she did in the wax?
Yes. But, she wound up as a master sergeant and on an Air Force base, so she was kind of in command too. She was disappointed when I got to be a second lieutenant because I had a little more rank than she did.
What was it? How many of your other brothers and sisters were in the military? Just the two of you?
None, just the two of us, right? Mm-hmm.
Did your parents ever put those banners in the windows?
Oh yes, yeah. They had a little banner in the window, and yes, yeah.
What was the significance of that banner at the time?
More or less to show that someone in the family was in the service, and that they were proud that they were serving the country.
And your family's banner then had two stars in it.
Mm-hmm.
When you returned back to the States, where did you first land?
in Newport News, Virginia.
What was your reaction when you finally returned?
Well, actually, I didn't get much of a welcome because all I did was go from the ship to a barracks and wait for my barracks bag and so forth to catch up with me, and then I had to just sit there and twiddle my thumbs until they came back to release me.
You were discharged in 46. What did you do next as far as your military career?
I went home and I worked a little bit for my father. Then I bought a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and a friend and I made a trip to the West Coast on motorcycles. And then I came home and got kind of serious and met my wife Elaine. She wasn't my wife then. She became a girlfriend, and eventually we were married. We were married in 1947.
Tell us about that trip to the West Coast.
Well, it was quite an experience. We were gone a month, and we slept outside in pastures and on the side of the road and in parks if there was a park. And one night we stayed in a motel so we could take a shower and clean up real nice. And otherwise, everything outdoors and cooked most of our own meals, and did pretty well. Went all the way to the West Coast.
Why did you and your friends do that?
For what should I say? Because we wanted to. I guess that'd be the only reason. Someone had an idea that maybe we should do that, and we did. And three of us started out, and one of the fellows got to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and he decided that he was lonesome for his girlfriend, so he turned around and went home. And the other two of us went out to the West Coast. Went out to Longview, Washington.
Well, you stayed up north, and you went
Right, north.
Tell us about your wife, and how did you meet her?
Actually, the young man that I went to the West Coast with, she was his girlfriend. And while we were on the trip, we were both writing notes to her, postcards, and sending them home. And when we got home, I beat him out. There was no ill feelings at all. She just decided she liked me better than she liked him, I guess, and so we got married.
Is the other guy still your friend?
Oh yes, we were right in the same village. We're friends all the while, and he got married also to another lady, and we played cards together and everything else. Yeah, no problem, no animosity of any kind. No.
You also you mentioned in your resume that you returned to the military again.
Oh yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, when you're commissioned, you don't get discharged when you leave the service. You get a certificate of service, they call it, and you're obligated to be in the reserves for a number of years after you go home. And at the time, things were brewing in Korea, and I was assigned to a reserve unit, and I did not want to go to service anymore with somebody I didn't know. So I left the reserve unit and joined the Michigan National Guard. And for 14 and a half years, I went to drill every Monday night in the National Guard, and I kept getting promotions as I went along. And finally, I think it was in 1968, I had to get out because they had no position for me. I was the most highly qualified captain in the state of Michigan, and they had no room, so I had to get out, and I was promoted to major at that time.
You retired from the military then in
Yes.
'68. What was it like being in the Michigan National Guard?
It was almost like being in service, except that I was in a higher rank all the time, and I had more people to watch out for and more sensitive jobs that I had to take care of. So I was intelligence officer part of the time, and I was S3 training officer for a while, and so you had lots of planning to do and so forth. And then every year, of course, we had summer camp, and we had to make a lot of plans for that and arrangements and so forth. Mm-hmm.
Did any of your buddies from the military also join up?
Oh yes, yes, mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. We had quite a few people in Iron Mountain, Michigan, that were stayed in the Guard, right?
Can you recall any of those buddies?
Do I recall them?
Yes.
Oh yes,
names?
quite well. As a matter of fact, I just saw one again the other day, and I was in at the hospital for therapy, and he was there with his wife. She had some tests that she had to have done. So.
What are their names? Some of the.
That was
buddies?
Bruce Kelly. Was one of them. Mm-hmm.
Can you recall for us some of your buddies that you had in the 36th?
In the 36th, well, I had John McFall, was a very good friend, and he's still around. He was supposed to be at this reunion, I heard, but I haven't seen him. And Jimmy Mathias, and McAllister, John Devick, Ed Johnson, and Churchill was one, and that's all I recall right now that were in our squad. Mm-hmm. And Ted Rodriguez is here at the reunion, and he was a lieutenant in our E Company when I was in it.
Tell us about the awards and decorations you received.
Well, the major, or the highest award I received was a Bronze Star, and I have a Purple Heart with a star, two of them, and good conduct, of course, and all the European theater and all of the. And I have a campaign medal with 7 stars on it. I was in 7 different campaigns.
With the 36th Division.
Mm-hmm.
What was the award of the Bronze Star for?
Being a good soldier, partly, and doing an exceptional job as a squad leader. I was a good leader and did a good job, and it was not. I wouldn't say. No real bravery involved with it, but I did good work, an excellent job, and I was right there at any time that I was needed, and I got the Bronze Star for that. And the Combat Infantry Badge, of course, with the wreath on it.
What was the Combat Infantryman's Badge awarded for?
For being in actual combat. There was an infantry badge, and then when you went into combat, they gave you one with a wreath around it, and that meant that you had served in a combat zone.
Are there any other stories or experiences from the war and your time in Europe that you'd like to tell us about that we haven't already covered?
Not too much, I don't think. I think you've covered it pretty well.
Let's ask maybe a couple general thought questions. What was your most positive experience during the war or your service?
My most positive experience? Give me a hint. I think I put something down there.
It was serving with some of the men in your.
Oh, okay. Yes. My most positive experience was being involved with such a group of dedicated soldiers, and the people in the army that I was involved with were very, very good people and good soldiers, all of them.
What was one of the worst experiences that you went
Well, I think the worst one I wrote on there was joining the 36th Division and feeling like an orphan because they all spoke Spanish and we didn't understand them, and they'd get mad at us when we didn't do what they told us to do in Spanish. So we just, yes, I would say that would probably be my worst, yes. As far as being wounded, I got such good care and so quick, and that was not a bad experience. No.
by comparison?
Yeah, right.
Let's see. Let's talk about your we talked about your wife. Tell us about your children.
My son Daniel was born in 1949, I believe it was, and he grew up in Bark River, and he was an excellent student, and he was a very, very well-behaved young man until he got to be 16 years old. And then we had a few teenager problems with him, and of course he went to school. I graduated from high school and went to Houghton College for a year, and then he didn't do well enough at the school because he didn't want to, I guess. So he was assigned to go to Vietnam, which he did. And he came home from that and went back to college again and got a degree in water management, waste management. And he got a job with that at Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and was doing well. And then he had I would say some bad experience. He had some very bad accidents, motor accidents, and so he got really banged up one time, and then he was in the hospital recovering from that. And then we got him home, and everything was kind of coasting along for a while, and finally he decided he would want to buy the business from me. I had bought it from my father, and so then he took it over, and he's still running it now. So he's down here with me, kind of babysitting. Okay, and our oldest daughter, Betty Lou, is graduated from high school from the Bark River area, and then she, for a while, became a ski bum and went out to the West Coast, or not the West Coast, but the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, and she was in Colorado for a while, and then she had a friend that told her that she should, wanted to make more money, she should go sailing, which she did. She went and got a job with the Leslie Likes Company from Louisiana and got on a merchant ship and as a seaman. And they told her that she would have to share a cabin with a man, and she said, "No, I won't." She said, so she went to the union and had a slight lawsuit, and I guess she got a few dollars out of that, but anyway, she got her own cabin on a ship, and she became more or less a leader for women to get into the merchant marine. Then after that, she got going with National Geographic, and she did sailing with down in Antarctica and scientific ships. And then after that, she got a job with Lindblad Expeditions. Right now, that's what she is. She's a naturalist on their cruise ships. It goes to Alaska and then up the Columbia River and so forth and so on. Our youngest daughter is the only one that's married, and she has one son. We have a total of one grandchild, and that's a grandson. He's 21 years old now, and she had a rough, not a rough time, but she wasn't real happy in school. She liked to draw. Almost all of her papers that were turned had a picture of a horse on them, and she was horsey inclined, and she loved horses. And finally, when she graduated, she got a horse and so forth. And she started to work for Social Security in Escanaba, Michigan, and right now she's in Superior, Wisconsin, still with Social Security. I think she's got almost 35 years now in that. And she's happily married, and as I said, she's the only one that is married. And so she's doing well.
One grandchild.
Yeah, one grandchild, right.
As a combat veteran, what was your reaction when you learned that your son was going to war?
I was a little bit disturbed because of where he was going, but as a matter of fact, I thought it would be a good experience for him. I thought that the discipline would be good for him, and I think it was in a way, except that he had a tendency to lean toward alcohol after his tour in Vietnam, and excuse me, that was some of his problems when he came home, and but it's all got straightened out. But yes, we were a little bit disturbed that he was going, but my personal feelings were I thought that the being disciplined would be good for him.
Did you have a chance to talk to your children about your war experience?
I had lots of chances, but the most I've talked to the children about war experiences have been since I got involved with this, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Excuse me. I don't enjoy talking about it unless I'm with someone that was in the same predicaments I was.
This is unusual since we are not wartime veterans, World War II veterans, but you're willing to share that story with us.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As you reflect on the oral history interview you went through today, would you recommend this to other veterans?
I would. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, be nice if you could get as many as you could, right?
What would you tell, or what would you say to a veteran who may be reluctant? How would you help convince them to share?
What would I say to them? I think I would try to get them first to relax and just tell it like it is. That's all. If you're upset with something that was part of your experience, say it. That's what I think.
Let's talk a little bit about the Japanese American, the Nisei soldiers.
Yes.
This may be not an accurate parallel, but you having a German background,
Mm-hmm.
and going to fight in Europe, did you have any feelings about that?
Not really. No. My German background that's what it is. It's my German background. I didn't have any real aggression toward the Germans, except that I was in the army and they were fighting us and we had to fight back, and they were taking people's freedoms away, and we didn't want that. We wanted to keep the people free, and I guess that's why we went over there and did it.
Did you have any concern that you may come across relations?
No, no, no. The only thing, after the war, my sister, the one that was in the wax, married a very German gentleman that came over here from Germany. And he settled in Nato, Michigan. And his relatives used to come over and visit, and I met him, and I said, one of them's name was Henry, and I said, well, I suppose, Henry, the last time I saw you, you were looking through the sights of your rifle at me. He laughed. He said he didn't know. I said it could be possible.
When you, the Nisei soldiers went through possibly a similar type of feeling, joining the military, potentially to fight their own kind. What were your thoughts about the Nisei soldiers that you've come to, now that you've come to know them? What are your thoughts about them?
What do we talk about?
Or what are your thoughts about the Japanese American soldiers?
Well, my opinion is that they were very dedicated soldiers, and they were excellent soldiers, and they were more or less fearless. They were very, very good fighters, and now that I know quite a few of them after, I find them to be very, very pleasant people, easy to get along with, and I enjoy their company.
As a veteran of World War II, what would you like to tell the future generations about your experience?
Well, what would I like to tell them about my experience? It was an experience that I don't recommend for anyone if they don't have to do it, but if you get involved, do your best and follow your orders and do what you're told. It's the best idea would be let's not fight anymore.
As a veteran of World War II, how do you feel about your service in that war?
I'm glad I was able to do it, that I was healthy enough to be able to go through it all and recover from the experiences that I had. And I think it really made more or less of a man out of me, because I was just a kid when I went in, and I came out a man. So,
what things did you gain in your life? You just mentioned the things you gained from the military and your war service, and maybe from your childhood, that you'd like to tell the future generations.
I would like to tell them to get as much education as they can. Definitely stay away from drugs, which is a very, very common problem now. And be patriotic and do what you can to help your country progress as best it can. And I want to say don't fight anymore, but that's one of the thoughts. I sure hope that this war thing can get straightened out and get over with and get some kind of peace throughout the world.
During the war, did you have a chance to fight alongside the Nisei soldiers?
I did, but I was not directly involved with them. No. We were side by side in a way, but not in direct contact. No.
Not in visual.
No.
Let's maybe get a little bit more, almost like create the scene. Going back to the Vosges Forest, what was the weather like when you were there?
The weather was very miserable. It was cold, damp, and snowy, and there was quite a bit of snow at some times. And the trees were very, very tall, and hanging, and if it did warm a little bit, then all the snow fell off the trees and down your neck, and it was a wonderful target for the Germans because they could fire into the woods, and we'd get tree bursts that injured a lot of people, and I would have to say it's some of the most miserable fighting that we had was in the Vosges forests. Yes.
Can you describe for us with the trees how was the visibility?
Very, very poor. Yes, they were close together, and as I said once before, there was only a few little trails that through there, and they were just dirt, and the visibility was very poor because of the trees.
Describe for me the equipment you carried, your gear.
That I had with me?
Yes.
A 60 millimeter mortar and a 45 caliber pistol, and we had ammo bearers, of course, carrying ammo for us. But in the Vosges Mountains, in the forest, we could not use our mortar because we didn't have any overhead clearance in order to get the rounds off. We couldn't use them, so we were more or less on guard duty and guarding the perimeter of the area.
How close or how far away were you from the next unit?
Well, in yards, I would say several hundred yards, something like that. Yes.
Would that be within vision or?
No, not in the forest. No.
How would you keep in touch with any of the other units?
With telephone, radio, or runner. Someone would have to go and make a trip and take a message or a personal visit over there.
Were you involved in that communication?
I made trips back to company headquarters, yes, with messages, yes. Mm-hmm.
How was it like traveling between those two company headquarters and your position?
Well, it's just a kind of a short hike is what it was. Not over 100 yards probably, and through the woods you'd have to be able to find your way, of course. But it was sometimes you'd run into somebody that you didn't want to run into. Yeah.
Were the Germans that close?
Germans were close by, you bet. Yes. As a matter of fact, we took several prisoners while we were in that area because the Nisei were raising so much heck with them that some of them decided to give up, and they walked over to our area and we took them prisoner.
What did they actually say this to you, or say this when they surrendered?
Did they what?
Did they say that is why they surrendered?
Yes, because they were getting beat up so bad that they decided to give up instead of trying to fight anymore.
It's interesting. You got that from the enemy.
Yeah, right.
Do you recall the types, at this point, the types of troops you were surrendering, the Germans?
The what?
Types of troops that were surrendering.
Oh, the ones that we took at that time were quite elderly. They were older guys, and they weren't the dedicated German soldiers that some people had. There were several SS units that were in the area, but we didn't capture any of those. But they were dedicated. They were along the Hitler line. Don't give up. No, die for your fatherland. Yeah.
The ones that surrendered then they were quite different from the ones you encountered.
Oh yes. The ones that surrendered were very, very docile, and they just came out with their hands up and no weapons of any kind. Yeah, we sent them back to company headquarters.
What kind of stories did you hear about the Niseis as a result of what the prisoners said? Did you hear any other stories about what the Niseis were doing? The Nisei soldiers?
No, other than that they were ferocious fighters, and they just didn't give in. They just kept the pressure on them, and they well, they did the job. Let's put it that way. They wanted to do what they were intended to do, and they did it.
Do you have any other stories, anecdotes, experiences you'd like to share?
With regard to service, I don't think I have any more right now. No.
How about family, childhood?
No. Other than I told you the story about how I got married. I had 5 brothers-in-law, and they were all in service. My wife's brothers were all in service. As I said, my father was going to go, but the war ended before he went. My father-in-law was in World War I, and he survived that. He was a bugler for one of the companies. Other than that, no, I guess nothing.
One of the connections, or one of the remarks I wanted to make on tape was that even though you were a participant in World War II, and that's a historical event, you were actually much closer to the real history than you may have actually realized, being in, especially with the Tehran, the guard duty at Tehran, how
Yes.
close you may have been to Winston Churchill and Roosevelt.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, that was really something. I wish I had been more involved with what was there, rather than just delivering food, sandwiches, and drinks or whatever it was. But, yeah, right.
Then a few years later, you're
Years later, you think about it. But at that time, I was, well, as I said, I was a farm boy, and I was not very experienced with anything, and I didn't know, I had no inkling at all that this was going to happen. Nobody briefed me on what was going to do. They just gave me new clothes, new shoes, and go, they said. Just get on that truck.
Did you ever find out how they decided to select you?
Yes, I did. I asked how come when I got back. And they said because you had a high IQ. That was it.
Education and your intelligence helped
Right.
you all the way through to
Right.
being an officer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And your brush with history too was also near Hermann Goering.
Right.
Interesting. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to thank you for sitting in on the interview.
Well, I thank you for interviewing me. I hope that it has some value for you.
It does. So on behalf of the Hanashi Oral History Program and the Go for Broke National Education Center, I thank you for
Okay.
being part of this interview. Thank you.